Raymarcher has its own material pipeline that works and handles data in a specific way. Materials in Raymarcher inherit from scriptable object, allowing you to create as many materials instances as you wish. The Raymarcher's material pipeline is divided into two major categories. Global materials. These are applied on all SDF objects globally and equally. Global materials can be set on the main Raymarcher renderer component, which holds a specific category in the material settings, called global material instances. If this array contains material instances and you hit register global materials, the given material instances will be preceded by the Raymarcher's material system and dispatched to the shader. These material instances will be applied to all SDF objects equally. Per instance materials. These are applied on individual SDF objects independently. If your render type is set to standard or quality, you can assign a specific material instance to your SDF object. Each SDF object has a field called object material that you can use to assign a material instance in the Unity editor at compile time. Once the object has a new material instance, Raymarcher will warn you that the recompilation is required. After recompilation, you will see that your object has the assigned material instance. All material instances will pass their data to the shader, which is internally done through compute buffers. If your target platform is set to mobile or WebGL, Raymarcher uses a special type of material types that unpack their data into individual arrays without use of compute buffers. That's also the reason why materials for mobile or WebGL are simple and contain just a few properties. Raymarcher includes its own library of standard materials, specifically developed for its rendering system. The material library is built to work effectively with Raymarcher and is categorized into two main types. Materials supporting mobiles and WebGL. These materials are optimized for performance on mobile and WebGL platforms. Materials exclusive to PC and consoles. These materials are designed for higher performance on PC and console platforms. The Raymarcher's material pipeline closely interacts with specialized buffers and data containers. Mobiles and WebGL have their distinct material types designed to deliver good performance on these platforms. Each material type within the library comes with its own specifications, features, and unique behavior. As the complexity of a material type increases, it demands more performance and memory resources. It is recommended to use one material type at a time, as utilizing multiple material types simultaneously increases memory usage. For specific material types included in the standard library, please visit the official technical API documentation. You can basically treat the Raymarcher materials similarly to Unity's regular materials. For a demonstration, I'm going to create and briefly describe every material type that the standard library features in the current Raymarcher version. The Unlit Material type is a regular unlit material containing a simple color override, triplanar texture, normals calculation, and a Fresnel effect. For example, if I want to use the Fresnel effect globally on all my Raymarcher objects, I can assign a unique material instance to all my SDF objects with different color overrides and perhaps some textures. At the end, I have an unlit material instance that has a Fresnel effect enabled. Instead of enabling the Fresnel effect on each individual Raymarcher object, I can go to the Raymarcher renderer, assign this material instance to the global material instances, and hit Register Global Instances. By enabling the Fresnel material feature, I can see the Fresnel effect applied to all Raymarcher objects equally, regardless of the material instance. The Fresnel effect also allows me to use the alpha channel, enabling me to dissolve the SDF object on the edges. I can also enable the triplanar texture feature. To work with textures in the Raymarcher, ensure your textures have the same dimensions and are read-write enabled. If you assign a new texture to the material instance, it is required to manually recompile the material buffer by clicking the button in the shortcut panel to properly utilize a special resource of this texture in Raymarcher. If you select one of the Raymarcher objects, you can see information about the active global materials. Clicking on that button will select the global material instance for you. The lit material type in Raymarcher incorporates all lighting features. It inherits from the unlit material and expands its feature to include specular highlights, shading, lighting, and real-time shadows. Applying the lit material instance to objects in your scene automatically enhances the visual experience, as basic shading is applied and lighting interacts with the objects. You can create a point light and add the light to the Raymarcher lighting collection. Additionally, you have a control over which material instance should include the main or additional lights, or if the Raymarcher render itself should include the main or additional lights. The lit material allows you to use light translucency. To achieve this, set the shading coverage slider all the way to -1 and move around with the light. The light remains visible inside the object. By increasing the max translucency absorption, the light slightly loses intensity as it goes deeper inside the SDF object. In global material features, you can define the linear attenuation of the additional lights, creating a more defined illuminated area. The lit material also enables you to work with real-time shadows. These shadows interact and take into account only Raymarcher objects. Enable the use shadows and soft shadows in material features and set the softness of the shadows. On your main or additional light, switch the shadow type to soft or hard shadows. The shadows generate nicely and interact with the surrounding objects. The PBR material type inherits from the lit material and expands its features with real-time reflections and scene refractions. While all the other parameters remain basically the same as on the lit material type, there are two extra sections for reflection and refraction. can enable reflection and scene refraction on the Raymarcher renderer game object. Reflection essentially doubles the iterations of the Raymarcher, so be mindful when using this feature. Reflection allows you to reflect objects on one another and play with the intensity and reflection jitter. The same applies to scene refraction. Essentially, the Raymarcher objects will refract the current scene color based on their sampled normal value. This can be useful for creating interesting effects, blobby characters, or magnified lenses. Slope lit is a special material type that inherits from the lit material. It expands the lit material with a second triplanar texture that is displayed when a certain normal's direction is below the defined slope angle. This feature allows you to create interesting landscapes using two textures. The slope lit material type is particularly useful when working with voxels and painting various voxel biomes. The mobile simple lit material is specifically designed for WebGL and mobile platforms, as well as low-end devices in general. It supports only one directional light and contains a simple Lambertian shading. Alright, that concludes the information about Raymarcher materials. Thanks for watching and good luck!